Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life Outspoken TV, where we have a multitude of different conversations, share lyricism that forges minds, enhances your spiritual sense, and overall helps the community thrive and have healthy family dynamic. So today, I have the honor, the respect, the opportunity to interview one of the most important people I've ever come across in my entire life. Someone who showed me that I can believe in the black man in America. Someone who showed me and ignited my DNA and my roots and family legacy and the importance of growing from that space to have a tree to add to. Someone who is to his community and to the world the first African American executive in the Long Beach chapter, the Long Beach facility of Boeing, which was formerly he worked for McDonnell Douglas. He is a father. He is a husband for over 36 years. He is my father. Let's give it up for Donald Ray Pitcher.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, thank you, Mr. Pitcher, for blessing us with your presence today. I know you don't do this often, but I wanted to share with people some of the wisdom, some of the presence of a family man, of an African American family man that does exist. Because we talk about the myth, the legend. The absentees all the time.
Yes.
That's not my reality. So I wanted to share that reality by sharing your story, how it developed, how you developed into the man that you are today, being a family man. So let's talk about it and dive right in. So first and foremost, we are in California right now,
That's right.
in the city of Long Beach. Hey, but you're not from California initially, correct?
No, I'm not. Born in New Orleans, raised at an early age in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Right. So in your early ages, how was that family dynamic? How was that living situation? The first house that you lived in, what was that like?
I'm a mother and father, two brothers, two sisters. Lived next door to my grandfather and his family. Um, lived in rural back in Baton Rouge, and back in the day was not a lot of manufacturing, a lot of wooded areas. They call it country.
And I remember when we first visited and you showed us Picture Hill and what a shotgun house was. So tell me about that. What's a shotgun house?
Shotgun house is a house that is straight through. In other words, when you enter the front is the living room, the big room. After you have a bedroom. After the bedroom, you have a kitchen, and then you might have a bathroom or outhouse straight out, a bathroom on the back porch or what have you. But it's straight shot. It's no side rooms, no side bathrooms. It's just a straight shot house.
So tell me about the living space and the experience of living in your first shotgun house on Picture Hill. What is Picture Hill, first off?
Picture Hill is my grandfather in his early days, the sharecropper, uh, worked hard, and back in the day, sharecropping, some sharecroppers, some owners was very, very selfish and not fair, and they
Fresh from
and
slavery.
they and they
Mhm.
pay the workers very little. But sometimes at the end of the year, the workers owed them for because of the place to live and the seeds, that they gave them. But this particular owner paid a decent salary to the workers. So my grandfather, man, he saved all of his money, his earnings, and he kept enough to take care of the family, but he saved. Whereas the rest of the workers, when they got paid, they'd run to the city and spend their money and party. And they laughed at my grandfather.
Mm.
My grandfather started saving his money and buying land. And back there and back in the woods and no manufacturing, nothing back there but
No
trees,
community and
no
housing.
housing, no nothing. When he bought it, and he bought it very cheaply, dollar an acre, stuff like that. And he bought quite a bit of land. He sacrificed and and sit on that land as time went by and the city started coming to the country. They started building roads and schools and malls and hospitals, all of that. Well, his property became very, very expensive, but he didn't sell his property. He chopped his property up. He gave about an acre to each one of his children. And he had 8 children, 7 daughters and 1 son. My father was the only son, the youngest of them all. And they all got property. And they called it Picture Hill because my grandfather was at this end, and he gave his children an acre piece on both sides of his house, just straight down. So it was like a hill, kind of the picture
Mm.
hill. And my father's property was right next door to his,
Mm.
and that's where I grew up.
Mm. So, what did your father do for a living back then?
My father, my father married very young. Married my mother. My father never graduated from high school. Or middle school. Uh, My mother he married my mother, my mother was 15, he was 17 when they got married, when she got pregnant, he was 16, and, he became a self-made man. A carpenter and a bricklayer,
Mm.
and he learned, from established carpenters and bricklayers and until he got his, license, and so he was a self-made man. He took our shotgun house and built on it and built on it until it became a three-bedroom house,
Mm.
with a nice kitchen and family room.
Mm.
He did that. He did that by himself, by his own hands. You know,
Mm.
um, but learned a lot from him. And as I was growing up, he was building, and We lived there while he built.
And if I were to go backwards a little before we go forward, um, a little bit more about your grandfather and his story
My
and how
grandfather.
yeah, because you talk about him as I think it's like the first entrepreneur you really knew.
My grandfather. Not only did he was sharecropper to save his money, uh, he was he was a smart man.
Mm.
My the owner, the sharecropper, they grew sugarcane,
Mm.
and as he grew and he had a sugar mill, and they produced the sugarcane into sugar
Mm.
and sold it.
Mhm.
Well, they got the owner got very big, and he opted to buy a bigger sugarcane mill,
Mm.
and the his smaller mill kinda broke, and he set it to the side and was sitting there. Well, my grandfather continually saving his money, approached him and asked him, could he buy that mill?
Mm.
And of course, he said, "The mill is broke, it doesn't work." He says, "I'll get it fixed, can I buy it?" He said, "Yes." He purchased that small little sugarcane mill, got it fixed, and started to do business with all of the small sugarcane growers in the area that couldn't afford to get a contract with the big guy
Mm.
because he didn't have time to work with all these little guys. So my grandfather became the contractor and sold and accepted all the sugar cane, bought all the sugar cane from the little growers, and you know had a business agreement with them, and he grew it. That's how he made his money. That's how he built.
Mm.
Okay, he used that mill until he couldn't use it anymore, but he had made enough. But during the time he was still have the mill, he bought a shotgun house, put it on the edge of his property, worked on it, remodeled a little bit, and made it out of a country store.
Mm.
Well, initially he just sold vegetables.
Mm.
And he purchased the vegetables from the farmers in the area that they had their little garden, and they
Mhm.
would sell all their tomatoes, cucumbers, everything that they grew, greens, collard greens, mustard greens, sell it to him in bulk, and he had a big vegetable store.
Wow.
Well, that store gradually grew to be a country store where everybody in the community shopped, and it grew.
Mm.
So he was an entrepreneur, and he owned a market, a
Mm.
country grocery store market, and flourished from there. He was also a pastor, and he got so popular, and he was so good and so strong that he eventually he got a store. I mean, a church built, and he got so big and so strong that he eventually had 3 churches. He
Wow.
pastored 3 churches simultaneously. So,
Mm.
that was the foundation. That was the family foundation. All the 8 children had property,
Mm.
and they started off working, in the store, in the grocery store, all because there was 7 daughters and 1 son.
Mm.
And my father continued to be a bricklayer and a carpenter, and a lot of the daughters ran the
The store.
supermarket, the store, the country store, so that was my foundation. That's what I grew up looking at, learning,
Mm.
seeing how the world goes and how things worked.
What were some of the most, what did you respect your grandfather, um, the most on, and how he moved and how he, when it came to family and that you saw in your father?
My grandfather was a spiritual man, and he was a family man, and he was a hard worker, and he stressed work ethics.
Mm.
What I appreciate about him, even though he is a family man, a hard worker, expressing work ethics,
Mhm.
he celebrated life.
Work hard,
I
play hard.
work hard, play hard.
Mhm.
I grew up with my grandfather and his big family, 8 daughters, 1 son, and they
Right.
all got married. We all lived around each other. So
Mhm.
4th of July, we had a big 4th of July party.
Mhm.
Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, everybody's birthday. We was always celebrating somebody's birthday. Mother's Day, Father's Day, family celebrations. I
Mhm.
grew up on with that. And as when we left from down there, we migrated out west. Times was hard down there for an African American living in the South, in the
Mm.
40s and early 50s, right?
Mhm.
And my father had some cousins that migrated to California. So, and would tell him stories about how much better it is, how life is better.
Mhm.
So my father gave it a shot, and he came out. And we stayed back. He came out and lived with my cousin and got a job at my cousin's. My cousin was the supervisor of a factory, a battery factory, and my father stayed with him and saved his money and got an apartment and sent for the rest of the family. And we got on the train and we arrived in Los Angeles, California.
So when you first, moved to Los Angeles, California, what section of Los Angeles did you live
We got a black community of Watts, and we lived in the Jordan projects.
in?
That was my start in Watts, California, Los Angeles, California.
From LA to LA.
Yeah.
So, what was the culture of the projects at that time? The Jordan Downs?
Ah, definitely not the culture of today.
Mm,
I felt at home. I felt that the projects was a beautiful thing to me,
mm,
because most of the people had migrated from some part of the South,
mm,
and they were a loving community. There was a church close by, the home where all the people in the area went to that church. The school was close by. We all went to the same school,
mhm,
and we all played together. We
mhm.
all had a respect of our homes. And we all
What does
respected
that
each
look
other.
like? What does respect for your home look like
They all
when you
watered
say
their
that?
grass.
Mm.
They all kept it green. It was the projects though, but they watered their grass. They kept it green. They kept it clean. You know,
Pride in the community.
pride and it wasn't their home. They didn't own it, but pride in ownership, pride
Mm,
in their community,
mm,
and that was a that was a structure that was embedded in all the people. Which it seemed like to me,
mm,
everybody had the same attitude. You know,
mm.
that was a good thing coming up. We loved it. We didn't realize we were living in the projects and supposedly,
Should lack or be looked down on, right?
we didn't know. We didn't
Just
know.
family
We
love.
loved it.
Mm.
It
Village life,
was a
right?
village. It was a village where you hear that, it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm.
I couldn't go out there and act crazy. My parents, neighbors, and friends, they would grab me and march me right on home. Right on home. May
Mm,
get a spanking before I get there. You
mm.
know, that was real.
Yeah.
People talk about that today. That was real.
Mm.
That was life.
Now people cuss you out and try to
No
fight
one
you for
cares.
taking care of
It seems
their
like they don't
child,
care.
right? And I think that that's something that is missing, just passing along those type of traditions and younger people actually taking it in as wisdom
Exactly.
and not just being, "Oh, you think tell me what to do with my kids or this and that."
Exactly.
And that's ignorance because ignorance is to deny education or intellect or even wisdom, you know, that exists. And it is the wisdom of the elders that kept families together,
Exactly.
that helped communities thrive.
No, I kept that pride of family, pride of ownership, pride of values. I kept that values throughout my life.
Mm,
You have to value what you have, and you have to build on what you have, and you have to teach that value.
mm.
I try to teach that to my family, to my children.
You definitely
We
do.
live, that was our creed.
Mm,
Respect one another, respect your family, the values of the family, and respect the community, your neighbors.
mm. What was the transition like going from the projects to your parents getting their first home down the street?
My dad
Mhm.
bought a house in 1964. We were so proud.
Aw.
Not only were we so proud, it was like we gained so much respect by just moving out of the projects into a home, and the home was a long way away from the. You're still in the community,
Mhm.
but it was a beautiful home, and we got so much respect from all our friends and all the families that we
Mhm.
left. They just totally respected us, and loved us, and worshiped us, and it gave them a goal.
Inspiration.
It seemed like all my dad's friends and all the families, one by one, over a period of time, moved out of the projects and bought a home.
Mm,
And like in our whole little area, we were the key. We were the root. We were the start.
mm,
And even when they moved and got their homes, we still celebrated together. It
mm.
still was a celebration.
It was still a community,
It
a
still was a
family.
community. It still was a great thing.
Mm. So growing up in Watts and having that foundation, um, And just me not just hearing your stories, but just throughout time hearing stories, there was a strong, activist energy within Watts. Can you tell me a little bit about that? During
Well,
that time of the Black Power movement?
that was the time of the movement. That was the time of the liberation when I was growing up. That
Mm,
was the time, and my young family went through the turmoil, went through it, because my father was old school from down south. My father and my mother, and during the time of the liberation movement, if you may, um, a lot of things was going on in the community, and the Black Panthers was active. And I lived across the street from, at the time, it was called Real Rogers Park. Beautiful park.
mhm,
It's now Ted Watkins Park, but it was Real Rogers Park. So a lot of activists, movements, speeches, demonstrations was active at the park.
mhm.
So me and my family
Who were
would,
some of the do you remember any activists
oh,
that
you used
that
to have Stokely Carmichael come and speak, H. Rap Brown come and speak. Uh, we even had Eldridge Cleaver come and speak.
Mm,
It was the speakers. We didn't get Huey P. Newton because he was in jail, but
mhm.
they talked about Huey a lot, you know, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot.
I wanna, take that opportunity to give some shout outs because Watts is still thriving right now in the community. People don't know that about Watts. It's always something and some kinda event happening around the park that is flourishing the community. I know Sticks, he always throws events that are catered to financial development.
They're still doing it.
19 Keys came by and spoke and added to that. I went to an event, I saw 19 Keys, Big Boy Sticks, and they were young people that are flourishing and giving back to the
That's
community.
beautiful.
So it's Watts is still one of those hubs that's still pushing that energy. So shout out to them for taking that time to do that and ignite that within the people that live there to this day.
Exactly.
So, but continue.
You
We're
know,
talking about
and during that time, I learned a lot. I was the third child, and my sister was the oldest.
mhm,
And we had two brothers. I had two brothers and two sisters. And the four of us under my oldest sister, we watched. And she was at that age where she took that first step.
mm,
She joined the movement.
mm,
And we were somewhat challenged and confused. And my dad tried to keep the family together. And he found the red book, which was which was what the
the
Panthers studied out
principles,
of the
yeah,
manifesto
mhm,
of Mao Zedong. And my father said that's communist. He won't have it in the house. He won't have any Black Panther literature. He's not going to let his family go that route. So I was torn in turmoil as a youth at 13 or
what
14
did you
years old.
think over time? Did you look at that as, a negative, as the Black Panther movement and the,
I started
communists?
off because of my dad and the respect I had for him, supporting what he said. But as I learned, and as I watched my sister and the growth, watched my dad, and he said my sister wasn't going to change. She was in the movement. This was life.
Mhm,
She was 18 years old,
mhm,
and the young people was the movement.
mm,
And I watched my dad says, if you are so dedicated, if you think so much of this movement, this Black Panther, of this liberation, then you got to go.
mm,
And my sister left. Me and my younger brother and sister, and my brother had one brother 1 year older. We looked at life.
mm,
We looked at my father, and we learned. I learned as time went on. My dad had to make a decision
mm,
to keep the other kids in tight, intact.
mhm.
he had to let his older daughter go. Of course, she came back eventually,
Right.
but at 18 years old, she went into the movement, and
Mm.
we learned about the movement. We learned a lot from my sister. Learned a lot from my dad, and my dad kept the family together, and we moved on.
Do you think that his experiences down south created a more even his whole age group made a more fear based
Exactly. You see, at the time,
mhm,
I didn't visualize that and grasp that, but
mhm,
as I got older, it just made sense. You
mhm,
see, the environment that he grew up in, standing up against the white man, if you may,
mhm,
could mean death.
mhm,
I mean, my mother and father eventually told me tales of how many people they personally knew, grew up with, that were lynched.
mhm.
They knew that. So I even gained more respect for my dad
Knowing that
because
later.
he was all about protecting his family,
Mm,
knowing the potential that what could occur,
mm,
knowing how he grew up, how he experienced life, how his father, whatever he had to do to keep his family together.
mhm.
And he did it. And we survived. And we learned. And we understood.
I hearing the story passed down, I'm very appreciative of both aspects of the experiences. Um, I feel myself so much in Auntie Karen, and I'm so happy that she had that stir up inside of her because I know it is stirred up inside of you when you passed down to me. Because I would have never thought growing up that you ever questioned anything if you didn't tell me. Because from the moment I was born, it was Black power, and you made sure we felt that. So salute to Auntie Karen for that and everything that ignited within our family, you know? But at the same time, it gave you opportunity to see because she did that. And it gave you opportunity to see the strength of your father, to see what it takes to hold a family together. When there's a difference in ideology,
Hmm.
you know, and doing what it takes. I know you guys you lived through the Watts riots,
Absolutely.
right? In the rise of in the midst of that black power initiation and inspiration. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. The Watts riot was a spark that came overnight.
Mm,
No one expected it.
mm,
My dad woke up that morning and went to work. My mom worked in a department store right down in the heart of Watts.
mhm,
Well, she had worked the previous day. And back then, and she worked, the owner was a Jewish guy.
mm,
And when the spark of the riot hit and the whole community rebelled
mm,
and the riot started, caught everybody by surprise. No one expected it. It wasn't planned. We didn't see it coming. So my dad got up and went to work. He probably heard about it. Somebody called him at work. Somebody called a job or something. They didn't have cell phones back then. You know, he may not even knew the impact of the ride when he got off work. Well, my mom knew because her boss, Jewish man named Tashman, called her and asked her to go down because she had keys to the store.
mhm,
But back in the day, back then, when they locked up, they locked all the money up in the cash register in the safe. They didn't take nothing with them. So he called her up and said, Miss Olivia? can you go down to the store and empty the money out of the safe and the cash register? He couldn't do it. It was a riot.
So we sent her in, tried to
He sent her in because
sacrifice her.
if he would have showed up during the riot, white man, Jew, showed up during the riot, he would have died. They would have killed him.
Mm,
So he sent my mom. My mom got me and my brother to ride with her. We rode down into the middle, the mix of the riot.
mm,
The riot had started. So we parked behind us in the back of the store in the parking lot in the back. She had the keys.
mhm,
She walked in. We walked in through the back door and went straight to the safe in the cash register. She started emptying it, putting it in her little bag. And by that time, the windows in the front started getting broken in. The doors started getting kicked in, and people just started flowing in and started just looting and taking. Well, they thought we was just some more looters. And,
mhm.
no one said anything to us. They just trying to get what they can. We walked on to the back, got in the car, and drove out. She saved her boss's, safe and all the money out of the cash register.
Mm,
And my dad, he got off, work. He was on his way home,
mm,
and he was riding. He had his hand hanging out the car, and a stray bullet hit him in his hand and shattered his hand.
mm,
He didn't even come on. He went straight to the hospital. We got news that dad had been shot
mm.
during the riot. You know, he was an innocent bystander. He just had his hand hanging out the door. He was probably looking around at as the riot grew. You know, but that was the riot, and it was some serious life changing experience. A lot of people died. 36 to be exact. You know,
Mm,
and we knew people that got killed personally.
mm.
Members of our church got killed personally.
Was it people on both sides or
What do you mean both sides?
um the uprise was against law enforcement and
Law enforcement was killing people.
mm,
I don't think there's any cops got killed,
mm,
but they were trying to stop the riot and they killed people.
mm, okay. I remember you telling me that that may be the first time you saw someone um
It
dead.
was. Um, the first time I saw someone dead during a riot, during the night. They rioted all night, and
How old were you?
I think I was 11 years old.
Okay.
I was 11 years old.
So would you say it might have been a double-edged sword because of that? Like we know from the energy of it, from the way it was talked about through time, that it created an energy that said that assisted because there was another Los Angeles riot, the Rodney King riots.
Many
But
years later, you were born then.
yeah, I remember it. But that was the heart spark and we don't have to take this.
Exactly.
And that law enforcement knew that there was a beating heart within Los Angeles that would fight.
If see the difference between the '65 riot, the Watts riot, and the Rodney King riot. The Watts riot, mostly black people rioted. They got fed up with police brutality.
Mm,
The Rodney King riot, everybody was rioting.
mm,
Latinos was fed up. White people were fed up. Black people were fed up.
mm.
They were all rioting. All over. It wasn't a little area, a little community. It was all over LA.
Mm.
People don't realize that. It was 10 times as big as the Watts riot.
Mm. Do you think that it equally may have made the people of the community afraid to speak out and step up again?
No, people they wasn't afraid. People was more vocal.
Mm.
People were more vocal. They learned from the Watts riot. Um, After the Watts riot, my parents got more vocal.
Mm.
The environment changed. The people changed.
Mhm.
They understood. They it's like that boundary, that border was knocked down, and people
Mhm.
kinda united, young and old,
Mm.
from throughout the rest of the '60s into the early '70s. That Black Power movement reached out and touched all of the elder Blacks that had migrated from the South
Mm.
and that had fought the change. They were scared. They were scared for their families. They lived in a time when white people would come to their house and snatch them out, and next thing you know, you had to go cut them down from the tree.
Mm.
They were scared. But after the movement, the riot, the liberation, individuals speaking, you know,
Felt strength and power.
they felt power, strength, and unity.
Mm.
And then the African dashikis and the movement, of African Americans and the
Guiding their
Afro
ancestors, the
hairstyle.
freedom. They found the sense of
Yeah, and I'm
freedom.
black and I'm proud,
Mm.
you know? Shoot, my daddy started wearing a dashiki and growing afro. That's how things changed.
Mm.
Everybody changed.
Mm.
All of the elders changed. There were it was more unity, and that unity generated throughout the family.
Mm.
Respect throughout the family, unity throughout the family, leadership throughout the family.
Mm.
I kept that in my heart. I grew with that.
I saw from the moment I came out the womb. But, after the strong activist Black Power movement, gang culture kind of, began its
Unfortunately.
manifestation and
Unfortunately.
flourished throughout Los Angeles. You lived to see that
I
start.
lived it. I lived it.
How
I,
how was that transition going from how did it affect the family and the community coming from what you just described to when the gang culture developed? What did it seem like? Where did
in
it come
in
from?
in the communities, the Black communities, it was, Black power, Black unity, uh, blood brothers. We had the fists,
Mm.
Black power, unity. Hey, blood brothers, everybody. It was a spiritual feeling. Everybody was empowered. Everybody was closely knitted. Everybody. It was a love atmosphere,
Mm.
and out of the clear blue sky, I tell you, in my heart, this is only my personal feeling. I feel that it was a planned movement that infiltrated the Black communities to change that
That
inner
love, that
feeling and
family.
love. All of a sudden, it was a group of Blacks, young people, that said, no longer call me blood brother, no longer blood, no longer unity, no longer Black power. I'm cuz now. I'm a Crip. I have my own style, my own gang. And they systematically, slowly changed, started attacking people that called themselves Bloods or Blood Brothers, Blood Unity. They
Mm.
started attacking them and started saying, "You either gonna be a cuz," which we didn't know what the cuz was,
Mm.
and
Which is
you
supposed to
can't
be
call
about
your yeah,
cousins or
you can't
yeah.
call yourself Blood Brothers, Bloods. You gotta call us cousins, cuz. And they tried to force Black people to come on their side. And mysteriously, those gangsters, cousins, cuz, or whatever, started having all of a sudden started coming up with guns.
Mm.
Where they was getting these guns from, nobody knew.
High artillery.
high artillery guns, and they start coming up with drugs. They start selling drugs. Where they got the money to buy all this stuff from, nobody knew. They were just regular teenagers.
Mm.
All of a sudden, they was dealing drugs and they was carrying guns. And a lot of the other black people that was normal, they didn't have all of that.
Mm. So they couldn't even fight it and protect their community.
They was being dominated.
Mm.
And the question is why I say to this day, it was an infiltration in our community. And it was staged and supported by an outside force.
Well, later, well, now it's come out over time. It's actually documentaries on it. The CIA was very
Exactly.
involved
Very
in
involved.
that. They used to park trains in Watts. It's people in Watts to this day that still find trains. Like
Mhm.
within the last decade, somebody told me it was a train open and a bunch of people got a bunch of stuff. So I don't know if that's happening today, but within the last decade, it still has happened.
Yeah. Well, in the
And
early 70s, I witnessed it. I witnessed it,
mm, and I
unfortunately.
like how you described it because you're like it was out of nowhere.
It was out of nowhere.
And people of my generation look at the gang culture as family. Like that's a family culture and praise Tookie and the Crip movement, you know. And even though I
You said
have
Tookie?
yeah,
Even Tookie. Tookie grew up in our neighborhood. Tookie was never like that.
I heard he started in Compton or came from
Tookie used to come to Real Rogers Park, which is right across the street from my house, and we had in our gym, we had a weight room. And him and Richard Washington and Tookie, they used to come over and lift weights all the time.
mm,
They were just one of the guys.
mm,
One of the guys. We knew them, was no big deal. And all of a sudden, Tookie and from over here in the 80s, West LA, and not in Compton. Compton wasn't gang banging back then.
oh, it was still like it was more white back then, wasn't it?
Well, it was wide
Still
into the
Caucasian.
60s.
Oh, okay.
Then after the riot, it became black.
Okay.
But Tookie was part of that infiltration movement that got started, and they started the Crips.
Mm,
You know, but he wasn't always. He was walking around saying "Blood Brother" too. He
mm,
was a "What's up, blood?" He was when I grew up. Before I graduated from college, I mean from high school. I graduated from high school in '72. You can go anywhere.
mm.
You can get. I had a 10 speed. I can get on my 10 speed and ride anywhere. I played a lot of basketball. I find any projects, any gym, and play basketball. And have a good time.
Mm.
And then when this Crip thing started, you couldn't go certain areas no more.
To this day. And I because I grew up with the people that I grew up with, it's instilled even though I never gangbanged. I was very heavily affiliated. So I always had that in the back of my mind of what area I was in,
Exactly.
what street we're on,
Exactly.
if I can invite people where I am or not,
Yep.
would their life be in
It
danger,
wasn't always like that.
colors that we can wear or can't
Wasn't always
wear.
like that.
And it's a PTSD that comes with that. It's traumatic, especially if you have times where people try not to think about that or they just live life and then somebody gets killed. I have non-affiliate friends that have been killed, beautiful souls,
So there's just so
mistaken
bad.
identity,
Yep.
you know? And so
To
even if
this
you
day, that started in like 1972, my senior year in high school.
mm,
And then to this day, you still talk about it. My daughter of
mm,
35 years old, and I was 33 years old when you were born.
wow.
To this day, you guys go through that. See, I didn't experience that. When I went off to college, I left my younger brother and sister, and they had to deal with it
Mm,
in their high school. They had to leave their high school and go to another high school. I never experienced that growing up, but they did,
Mm.
unfortunately.
'Cause, Grape Street didn't develop until after you
So I
went
was
to.
gone.
Mhm.
The boys with Grace Street, they were just regular little guys. All everybody was just regular.
Mhm.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Um,
So when it came to you, leaving your parents' home, right? How was that transition? Was that a big decision that you had to make and being a man, or was it just the culture of your family, or how did that take
you
place?
see, my parents, they were they were they were behind me at my education.
Mm,
I was the first one in my family to graduate and go to college. My mother and father was so happy.
mm.
They 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 ushered me right on out of the house to college. Excuse me, to college because I went straight to the dorm, living on campus, and it was a smooth transition. I
Mm.
made them proud. They made me proud
Why do you think they, treasured that form of education so much?
because they knew in order to achieve a higher position in life, they felt that it could be done through education. And my mother once told me after I graduated from high school, I mean, from college, she said, um, I think, because after I graduated, after a few years, she told me that some of my other nieces and nephews graduated.
Mm,
She says, as I look at my family,
mm,
and it seems to me that those that has graduated from college has gotten better jobs
mm,
than those that didn't. The ones in my family that has graduated from college has they're better off in
mm,
life. So she was fixed on the fact that higher education was the way to go.
mm. So, before we talk about your next phase of life, what do you think are some of the values or things that you took from your parents' household into the world?
For my parents' household, into the world in terms of what I learned and took with me, and as I became a man and had a family, was basically how how to establish a family structure.
Mm,
Um, I learned the leadership characteristics that my father laid out, being a
mm,
leader, the spiritual characteristics that I felt I learned, and it was so important,
mm,
and being raised in church and the spiritualities of that aspect of the roles and responsibilities of a man and roles and responsibilities as a woman and with their children.
mm,
I learned how to celebrate life, uh, and I learned the importance of education. Um, I learned the lead how to lead by example, how to be a strong leader.
mm,
Um, all those characteristics I saw in my father, in
mm.
my mother, and my parents that I brought forward to my children.
So, when you left college, right? You got your first degree.
I got my degree, a Bachelor of Arts in African American Studies, and I got a Bachelor of Science and Recreation with a minor recreation, commercial recreation.
Okay. How did you see some of those leadership abilities or what you learned from your household play in your career life in the community before you may have settled into your primary career throughout your life and started your own family?
when I got out of college, I started working with Parks and Recreation
Mm,
in the inner city,
okay.
and I
What
remember
parks?
I
If you
remember
mind me
Carver
asking.
Park in Compton and Mona Park in Compton
Mm,
in the inner city. Now, I was placed at those parks because they had a difficult time keeping a park leader there
oh, wow.
because it was a tough area, and a
Mm,
lot of the individuals that got those jobs couldn't keep those jobs there. They decided to they couldn't do it. You know,
mm,
the people, the area was too tough. The kids was too bad. The whole environment.
mm,
So when I got there, um, I had a little time. I had some confrontations,
mm,
you know, and I was fortunate. I knew a few people that they were adults now, but they had went to high school with me.
mm.
So I had a in a little bit.
That worked at the park or in the
No, they
neighborhood?
lived in the area.
Okay.
They lived in the area, and they came up to the park and hung out at the park, and
Mm,
I knew them,
okay.
right? And I knew they off again. They little nieces and nephews or what have you, cousins or whatever.
Mhm,
Anyway, I started developing. I started to generate. I started to try to start a uh, a cohesive sports environment, teams and leagues, what have you.
mm,
And I started. I remember vividly. Started getting a team together. Before I can get a league, I had to get some teams, and we went to play another park.
mm,
And as we went there, some of the kids says, "Oh, look at the white area. Look at there. Look how clean it is." You know, said that's because the white people support their parks. They don't do that to our parks.
so the children started to notice the difference in the cleanliness in other
So
neighborhoods.
I tell this story, and this is it's such a unique story. So I said, the Parks and Recreation, a lot of the parks in LA County was built the same.
Mhm,
They had the same swimming pool design, the same gym, same baseball, football field. They're all the same. They're just in different areas of Los Angeles.
mhm,
So I told them, I says, when we got back, I says, look around. When we got back to our park, I said, we just left a white area, a white park, and it was beautiful. I said, no, let's come here. I says, look at our park. I said, "You think have you ever seen any white people or white kids come and mess up our park?" I said, "Look at our park. Look at the graffiti on the walls." I was looking at the parking lot where the glass is broken. Look at that trash can over there that had got burned out. I said, "Look at that outside basketball court that the basketball area is broken down." I said, "Who have if anybody came to our park and did this?"
right, they did it to their own
I
park.
said, "We did this. You did this.
Mm,
We did this to our own park." I said, "Nobody came to our park and tore up our park. We did that. Our park's supposed to look just like their park."
mm,
And it hit something. I hit something
mm,
because I was talking to my whole basketball team.
mm,
It hit them, believe it or not. Those kids took it upon themselves. I would be in the office. They would come to the office with another kid, grab them by the chest and by the arm and says, "Coach, we caught him busting a bottle. Coach, we
mm.
caught him writing on the wall." I said, whenever what they did, I made those kids sweep up the glass, or I had paint in the office where they painted over the graffiti.
Mm,
In less than 6 months, the park was spotless. The kids monitored themselves. And that's when I started organizing.
mhm,
Went out to the parks, I mean, to the churches in the community
mhm.
and asked them to start a team from their park, from their church, and join our park.
Create a league.
And we started leagues.
Mm,
We started church leagues, uh, joining the community leagues.
Mm.
and the deacons and the trustees was coaches, and it grew.
And it started to feel more like a family
And
environment.
and yeah, and I brought people together and teams together, and my superiors would come to our banquets and come to our leagues. They were amazed. They had no idea that it could happen like that.
And that's what people may not understand, is sometimes it only takes one person that has a family foundation or a want for that, because for a community to thrive, that's what it is.
Exactly.
It's the understanding of what family is. It's the understanding of taking pride in this living space that you live in, and it being home and village, because it takes a village to raise every child. And it being so important coming off of post the infiltration to our family dynamic, that people like you that lived in another phase of life took it upon themselves to spread that. And I can't stress it enough of how important it is to talk to the elders, to get wisdom, to have these conversations, because I didn't grow up in that era. The most that I could see that is from my home, and then from any other home that attracted to our home that was like our home, you know? And so many people didn't have that.
Mhm.
And it creates a division between generations, because people hate or have an envy or a it's something that's spirals inside of them towards people that have a home with two parents.
Mhm.
They think that people from two-parent households don't deserve anything, shouldn't have anything. They deserve it more. They see it as what they went through as like a crutch or even a merit badge. Like that's something that to be a proud of. And if you have a family, you're weak. And that's something not to be a proud of, when not realizing that that was a part of the conditioning that's killing our people and our family
Mhm.
dynamic of a man, woman, child household.
Exactly. Well,
But
I was able to organize and get the people online. I mean, it was totally the superiors downtown was just shocked and amazed that that little ghetto park can rise and compete with all the other facilities and all the other parks, and it could be organized with baseball leagues, football leagues, basketball leagues, you know, and they had the talent. Once they was organized, they was dominating.
and work with unity and pride.
Unity and pride, they was dominating.
So how did
And
you see, I'm sorry to cut you
go,
off.
go ahead.
So how did you see that team development, that those skill sets that you utilized within that environment in the next phase of your life?
Next phase of my life, someone came to the park and said they're hiring a McDonnell Douglas, and
Mm,
this is what they're starting at. I'm like, you got to be kidding!
mm,
That was more than I was making. So I went down and I applied
mm,
and I tried to use my degrees, but they said they wasn't hiring in that field. They were hiring as mechanics,
mm.
you know, and actually I had any experience. I didn't really have any experience, but I said I did. And I got hired. I passed the math test and the blueprint reading test, and I started as a mechanic. I worked as a mechanic for 6 months, and then I saw on the bulletin board that they were hiring associate industrial engineers. All you needed was a 4-year degree. I brought a copy of my degree in, and I was already hired working for them. And I went into the training associate industrial engineer,
Mm,
and with the stipulation that I would go and take industrial technology classes at Long Beach City College. I went there and got a certificate in industrial technology, and started as an associate industrial engineer.
mm,
And I was an associate for 1 year before I became a regular industrial engineer. And engineers worked with manufacturing on the line and supported the manufacturing groups, the teams,
mm,
and I was dedicated and had some ideas and what have you. So the general manager saw me and saw what I was doing and asked me would I like to become a manufacturing manager, managing the line. I said, "No, I like my job as an engineer," until he told me the pay. The pay was higher than what I was making. So that
Mm,
was another step. So now and that was less than a year. I
mm,
was there for less than a year, and I took 2 scales higher, moved up.
mm,
So once I became a manager first line, it was they were struggling, and, they were struggling because they were working as individuals. The
they didn't
first
know how to
shift
work
was
as a
fighting the
team.
second shift.
Mm,
The, manufacturing, management was fighting the union. Inspection was fighting each other. So, systematically, slowly but surely, I started breaking down barriers. I
mm,
started saying, "Hey, we need to work as one, as a team." And I started, uh, uh, breaking down the barrier between first shift and second shift. Then I started breaking down the barriers between management and the union, started working as one. And to make it kind of like make a long story short, because it was a whole transitional period, eventually we started developing teams in us manufacturing, because at first the tooling support, the inspection support, the planning support, all the support that you needed, the engineering support that you needed for the team to be a successful building the airplane
mhm,
was off into their own little sections.
mm.
I brought them all together and
And that's powerful.
made one team, because I said, as I got promoted, of
Mhm,
course, I had the ability to do that. I said that why should a engineering group, a tooling group, a planning group go off at the end of the year and judge themselves and give themselves raises if the manufacturing group that's building the airplane is failing? I
mm,
said, if they fail, we all fail, which we did.
mm,
So I broke them all down to little teams. This one manufacturing team that built this part of the airplane, they had a planning, a tooler, an engineer, all on their team.
mm,
And as that team was successful, everybody got paid.
mm.
But if that team was failing, and nobody get no raise.
And I think people don't understand or don't value the importance of systems and the importance of working together and having different geniuses, having different skill sets. Even when I have some of my clients and they come as a family or as couples, and we look at their human design, we look at their astrology, it's good to identify those things because, like you said, you cannot you cannot fail alone.
Right.
It's a group effort in general.
See, but the key is I had the one department. There was many departments, big old facility. I had that one
I don't
department.
wanna cut you off, but we don't have so much time, and I really wanna get into what made you, what set you up to be your family. So, at what point did you meet mama?
At work.
And where
On
were
the
you at in your
job.
career at that time?
When I met her, I was a manager. I was a manager, and and I was had been married for and divorced, and I met your mom.
And what prepared you from your last marriage that, you took on to this marriage for
See,
it
I
to be
wasn't gonna get married
successful?
again. I wasn't. It had to be. Oh, I was totally against it, you know. And I met your mom.
Mm,
I saw the attributes of a woman that I admired and said, and I, I didn't realize at the time, but I had it focused in my mind that this was the woman, what a woman
what
should be about
what are some of those attributes that you think?
spiritually. See, my first wife, I was married for 2 years. We never went to church together. We weren't.
Mm,
She wasn't spiritual. But when I met your mom, my wife, she was spiritual.
mm,
She understood what it took. You know, you see, being having a spiritual woman, she knows the roles of a woman and the roles of a man. She
mm,
knows the importance of raising children. That was the best thing that could happen to me because it was exactly what I was looking for,
mm,
and we blended in so perfectly. Um, the importance of celebrating life that I grew up with. I had started my grandfather and my father and my family. I knew it was so important to do that.
Mm.
So when we got married, to this day, 36 years later, 37 years later, we never miss celebrating birthdays, Father's Days, Mother's Days, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, the 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. We celebrate everything. And we celebrate as a family, as you
Even
know.
even
We
though
celebrate as a family.
I tried to strike it. I tried to go on strike for a few of those.
Yeah. But I knew, and she grasped it, that that's the foundation of a
Mhm.
successful marriage, of a successful family.
Celebrating life and each other.
Celebrating life, respecting, lead. I always wanted to lead by example because I sit back and watch my grandfather and my father lead by example. So when I stepped forward, I wanted to lay out the roles and responsibilities and the aspects and the what's required.
Mm,
You can't be a man if you don't lead your family as a man.
mm.
You have to be the man. Always be a man. Never backstep, never bow down. Always be a man.
So with you having those values, having those understandings, climbing your way to the top in your field, becoming the first black executive. What does it mean to be an executive for that? Just very
Well,
briefly. What's the difference between when you were a director and you became a
when you become
executive?
when you become an executive, you have shares with the company. You There's only so many executives in the company. You have an area of responsibility that is huge. Um,
When you retired, how many people worked under you and that you were responsible for?
by the time I retired, I had the responsibility of probably about 15 to 1,700 people, 1,700 people in various, probably more than that. My budget, I had a budget of some $50 million, $50 million a year. And it was probably bigger than that. I had tooling, I had manufacturing, I had engineering, I had planning, all those individuals that was part. I was an executive director and the C-17 program. We sold each airplane was $250 million a copy,
Mm.
and we did like 20 something airplanes a year. So that was billions of dollars profit to the company, and it was like four directors, and I had a fourth of that, in which I grew to have like 33% of the entire budget of the C-17 program. It was only four directors that ran the program, and over us was the vice president and general manager, and over them was him was the CEO.
So with all of that, right? The pressures that come with all of that being on your shoulder, but the benefits as well. What does that look like for a man that goes to work every day, has all of those pressures, but still was able to come home, lead a family, still operate in the community because you were coaching teams and doing all of this. I didn't even, as your child, I didn't even know you did all of that at work because you never brought it home. No stress, none of that. You brought home joy. We were so happy to see you. Like mama had to like kind of be the stern, systematic person that kept the system in place that you guys put in place. But how were you able to do that? How did that partnership look for you to be able to sustain a family and have a career?
I would say love, the love of life, the love of respect, the love of success, uh, the knowing how a outcome, the possibility of an outcome. Um, I was happy for what I achieved at work, and the people let me know how happy they were to come to work.
Mm.
Working in a team-based environment, the culture. I talked to people and they said, "I've worked here 30 years, and this is the most happy, most pleasant time I've ever experienced because of the team-based culture that we had developed."
So if I were
And I brought it home. I
okay.
brought that love home. I brought that happiness home. I didn't get off of work mad.
Mm,
I got off work happy.
mm,
And when I came home, as you know, I believed, and me and Pam, my wife, believed in activity.
mhm,
We had activities going year round. You guys participated in dance, cheerleading, drama, baseball, basketball, football, church events. We were nonstop, nonstop. We had our neighbors saying, I remember our neighbors coming by and said, "You're the busiest family I ever seen."
and do you think that, so what would you say to women who are looking for a husband, that they want and they want to be, aligned with a successful man, a man that is a family man, someone that they can build with? What are some of the things that she needs to have within herself or the attributes that she needs to have? Is it a
In
level of
order for,
strength? Because they say strength is more masculine. So
yeah, but
what does she
see,
need to have?
that woman, a man, a good man, a strong man, is going to be looking for a mate. He's going to be looking for a mate that is self sufficient. He's going to be looking at a mate that is not needy, not pulling, but bringing something to the table. He's going to be looking for a mate that's spiritual, that knows the roles of a woman, knows the roles of a man, knows how to raise children. He's going to be looking for a strong woman. A strong woman will make a man stronger,
Mm,
and a strong man knows that. You know how I was so successful is because I had a strong woman at my side
mm,
that knew when I worked all day and was going back to school to work on my executive MBA, and still had to raise some children and keep them active, that she was right there filling the role that she felt, that she filled, and the strength that we had. And as you can recall, every Sunday morning we went to church as a family. No ifs and buts about it.
mm.
Um, every birthday you ever had, we celebrated. We had a party.
So let me ask you this. So, because there's a clash that exists now within my generation. When you say self-sufficient, right? And not taking or being needy, the culture of women at this time is you gotta have a bag, you gotta pay for all my bills. And as I believe that it is, and seeing your dynamic with you and mama, you provide, you take care of the family. Um, she gives everything that she has to give to that as well. She's not expected. It's not like, but it's not like a slave kind of thing. Like you got to have this to the table. So, kind of elaborate on that because there's a lot of feminine men who are looking to take from women and or like a pimp mindset or something like that, or just pocket watch to be taken care of almost.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
What do you think about when it comes to the financial aspect and what a woman brings or
I'm old school. I think a man should be the breadwinner. The man should be the man of the family. The man should be the provider. The man should be the protector. But in order to be successful, it's good to have a woman that's educated.
mm,
It's good to have a woman that's self sufficient, that has her job, because you
that can take
in
care of
today's
herself?
environment you share the rearing of the children.
Mm,
It's not all the woman.
mm,
The man plays his role, because in order to be a highly successful family, the woman is going to have to be somewhat of a little breadwinner also.
Mm.
She has to do her share. In today's environment, as you know, growing up, a man have to be capable of cooking. A man had to be capable of cleaning. A
Mm.
man in today's environment, a man don't go to work, his wife stays at home and does all the cooking and the cleaning and the raising of the kids. The man come home, pop a can of beer, just sit down and watch sports. That ain't gonna happen
Mhm.
if you're gonna be the best that you could be.
Mm.
It gotta be all inclusive.
So, if I were to sum some of this up, and I know you have so much more to say, and it'll be in your book that people can now order for pre-sale, and that's 7 Principles of a Family Man. But if you were to sum some of this up and of what's needed to be a successful family man and have a healthy family dynamic, and if you were talking to someone who did not grow up having that, who has no clue, especially people of my age or younger who grew up within gang culture in that time frame after the Black Power movement and the divisions of the Black family, what would you say to them?
If I'm talking to the mind, be a man at all times.
What is that?
Lead your family. Be the leader. Generate respect. You got to respect, but you got to give respect, but you got to demand respect.
Mm.
You have to be in a life cycle whereas you understand the needs of your family and you respect those needs.
Mm.
You don't force nothing too powerful.
That's what I was gonna say too. What does demand and respect look like? Okay.
You don't force anything. You see where they are in life. You give positive
Reinforcement.
enforcement, what's good, what's bad, what give a little, take a little, uh, understanding, especially as your children grow, you got to understand what's their mind, what's their psyche, and you support that, or you sit down and talk about that. What's good, what's bad, what's required, what's not required, what's needed, what's not needed,
Definitely appreciate that.
what's needed, what's not needed in life, the direction you're going. You also have to let them know where have you been, the
Mm.
mistakes you've made,
That mattered.
what mistakes
Being
you've
real,
made.
being authentic,
Exactly. I've been that. I've done that. Now you can go down that road, but this is what's on the other side of that road,
and
and you
teaching the
got to be
game of
able to
life.
deal with it.
Mhm.
Life is not a bed of roses.
Mhm.
Life can be very, very difficult.
And it's good for your children to know that you're not perfect,
Never,
but
nothing.
you decided to learn from your mistakes and apply those lessons. I appreciate the most the car rides that we would take. I didn't even know that sometimes that you needed to talk to me.
That was a teaching ride.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I
That was a
thought about
growth
it when I
ride.
was an adult. You just kind of eased it on to me because I like taking rides with you, and we would go from our house in Compton or Carson, and then go to mommy
Just
house
taking a
on Watts.
ride.
Yeah, like this.
Just talking.
Where are we going? Just taking a ride, and you would talk to me about life, and then throughout the conversation, you would tell me what you wanted me to know, and you did it in a way to where it was real. So it stuck with me. So I handle
I
situations
had to let you
differently.
know that I haven't been floating on a cloud all my life. Life can be have its challenges, but it's just the way how you deal with it.
It's something that you just said, and I really I love that you said it because I want men to take that in, and it's about not being forceful and how you get your respect within your family because you came home with joy, and even when you were stressed, you didn't stress us with your stress, and you were so cool about life, and so we knew you were strong. You weren't a pushover kind of a person at all. But because you've been through so much in life, nothing really got you angry. like that. You just kind of brushed it off and laughed at us, until it did. And because you were so cool, when you did get stern, we follow suit. We stepped right because we like, oh, daddy got mad. Daddy don't get mad, you know, versus people who get that side of their father all the time.
Mhm.
So the rebellion is all the time because they're not being respected. They're
Right.
being forcefully attacked all the time. So I appreciate that
Okay.
because that I respect that in men. I feel it taught me to me a real man is someone who can demand respect by his presence, by his energy, by how he gives respect, how he leads, how he teaches, how he gives wisdom,
Absolutely.
how he protects, how he celebrates you when you do good,
Absolutely.
you know, but guides you when you do wrong without judging you. You knew how to talk to us. It was kind of judgy, but you knew how to talk to us in a few words that said a lot, that hit our core and sat with us. And and that was just it, you know? And I want to thank you for that, for being powerful, for loving us, for staying with us, for making sure we were introduced to a lot of different things and for us being able to have that myth that they act like is a myth when it comes to the black man in these urban communities, being a good father and being a professional and being a leader. So thank you for that. Um,
Did the best I can with what I
yeah,
had.
thank you. So thank you all for tuning in and listening to this story of a family man, of someone who operated in values, who lived through different times in life, being an African American in America, but was not beat down by it, was not torn apart by it, but instead let it give him strength, understanding, wisdom, perspective that created a healthy family dynamic. And I hope that you can be inspired by that no matter what you go through in life and you choose values, you choose family, and you push your neighborhood forward in that sense. Get his book, pre order now, Seven Principles of a Family Man. Thank you, Don Pitcher.